Well, good afternoon. We are a bunch of Christians. We follow Christ. He is who he says he is. We come from different churches all around the town. So we're not here talking about a specific church denomination, but we are Christians, followers of Christ. And if you've got any questions, come up to any of the guys and girls here. We don't know everything, but we know enough. And if you need any prayer, if you're going through a tough time, hey, God can help you. So you can do that. On the table, we've got 3 books, and you can take any of those 3 books there. They're for you to take away and read and find out. Find out for yourself. I'm going to cover some things over thousands of years today, so it just, as you go past, I know you've got busy lives just like we have. Jesus said, now these are his words, go and check, not my words. I prefer to talk about what he says. Jesus says, little children, I shall be with you a little while longer. You will seek me, and as I said to the Jews, where I am going you cannot come. So now I say to you, a new commandment I give to you, that you love one another as I have loved you, that you also love one another. By this, all will know that you are my disciples if you have love for one another. Now this brings me to a question. Incidentally, that was written about 85 years after Christ was crucified. So, would not the opposite of what I just read out, Jesus said, wouldn't the opposite of that be hate and anger? No, brother. Hate and anger. Think about this. Do we give this, sometimes do we have anger in our hearts? Or even hate? I mean, you go online today, and if you want to beg for hate, I mean, you'll find it. But do we do this to our families, to our friends, to our neighbors? Think about this. Ask yourself these things, because you're the same as me. God created you the same as he created me. Jesus knows us inside out. That is what, and I'm going to show you here that this is evidence. Jesus knows us inside out, and he is called the Son of Man. And the reason he's called that is for a reason. You have heard that it was said to those of old, this is what Jesus said, you shall not murder, and whoever murders will be in danger of the judgment. But I say to you that whoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment. That was written about 60 years after Christ was crucified. He said it himself. Also, going back nearly 3,000 years ago, this would be 600 years before Christ was crucified, in the book of Jeremiah it says, can a man hide himself in secret places so that I cannot see him, declares the Lord. Do I not fill heaven and earth, declares the Lord? He's saying there, look, I put 1 billion stars in the galaxy, in the Milky Way, and you think I don't know what you're thinking? Also in Jeremiah, which is 600 years before Christ was crucified, for my eyes are on all their ways. They are not hidden from me, nor is their iniquity concealed from my eyes. Go a bit further, nearly 700 to 1,000 years before Christ was born. That's nearly, 2024, that's nearly 3,000 years from today. For a man's ways are before the eyes of the Lord, and he ponders all his paths. He reveals deep and hidden things. He knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwells with him. How about that? This is all through thousands of years this wisdom of truth about God knowing us inside out. You can fight that. I used to fight that years ago when I was younger. You can fight that truth. But God says that through thousands of years, through different prophets. And he says it through Christ. He says it through the apostles. Let me ask you, do you have things that you hide from God? Are there things that you hide from God? He doesn't know this, so I'm going to keep this quiet. I'm not even going to tell my wife or husband or my friends. Let me ask you a question as we go past. Think about this today. Do you think you're a good person? Let me ask you a couple of questions from the moral law. Now, the moral law, you may have heard, is called the Ten Commandments, and it sort of helps society behave, act in a certain way, and also it helps influence some of our legal laws. You know, you're not allowed to murder anyone, otherwise there'll be a penalty for that. So let me ask you, have you ever told accidentally? How many lies have you told? 10? Just one? Just one white one? I don't know why they call it a white one. But 10, 20,000, 10,000, too many you can't remember. What do we call someone who tells lies? We call them a liar. Have you ever taken anything that didn't belong to you? What do we call someone who takes things that does not belong to them? We call them a thief. Have you ever lusted after anyone? Jesus knows us. I said earlier on, Jesus knows us. He's the Son of Man. He knows us inside out. If you're married or single, have you ever lusted after another man or woman? Jesus said if you lust after another in your heart, right there in your heart and your soul, you've committed adultery. How about that? So we've got the laws here, but Christ takes it deeper into our soul. So he said, if you lust after another in your heart, you've committed adultery in your heart, in your soul. Have you ever taken God's name in vain? Let me ask you something. We all have mothers. I am 100% sure we all have mothers. Would you take your mother's name and use it as a curse word? Of course not. Because you love your mother. So why is it we take God's name and use it as a curse word? You know, you're doing some DIY at home. You got a hammer and nail. You missed the nail and hit your thumb. And out comes that curse word. But we don't curse our mother because we love her. We curse Christ, the one who gave us life, the one who gave us every breath we take today, the one who put that sun up there in the sky. God says, they shall not go unpunished that take my name in vain. So there's a penalty for that. As there are penalties in our own lives for things. These are the laws. So what happened to you on your day? Will you be innocent if you looked in the mirror today and asked yourself just these couple of things? I'm not covering the 10, I'm just covering 3 or 4. Will you be innocent or guilty? Will it be according to Jesus Christ, everlasting life, or everlasting eternity in darkness, which he calls hell, away from God? You see, because right now, whether you believe, whoever you believe in, or you believe no one, you are under that sunshine that warms you every day. And Christ made that. So you are under his providence. You actually, in all your life, the same as me, has never been outside of God's loving providence and creation. But when we die, there's a choice there where we could be outside of his providence and grace and creation. which is darkness. You and I have never experienced that. That's why Christ lovingly went to the cross himself. It wasn't another person, it was Christ himself. Many witnesses saw him afterwards. Thomas himself, who was doubting at the time. He was a tough guy, Thomas was, the disciple. But Thomas didn't quite believe, and Jesus said, come. After he'd risen again, he said to Thomas, come. Here, Thomas, put your fingers in the holes in my hands. Here, Thomas, come and put your fingers in the slash in the side of my body, where a spear went in. And Thomas turned around and said, my Lord and my God. He started believing. So let me go back a bit further. I've covered those things. I'm still on that point of God knows every one of our thoughts and what we think and our pathway. David, you've heard of King David. Wasn't always a 100% righteous man. He made mistakes, he sinned. King David was speaking to his son when his son was going to take over from the leadership from him. So a father loves his son, generally speaking, and he was giving him good advice. And he said, and you, Solomon, my son, know the God of your father and serve him with a whole heart and with a willing mind. For the Lord searches all hearts and understands every plan and thought. If you seek him, he will be found by you, but if you forsake him, he will cast you off forever. That was the advice that an experienced King David gave to his son Solomon. And that was written 1,000 years before Christ was crucified. That's over 3,000 years ago. See this familiarity of truth running through history? Here's another. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever one sows, that will also reap. Ye shall also reap. For the one who sows to his own flesh will from the flesh reap corruption. But the one who sows to the Spirit will from the Spirit reap eternal life or everlasting life. That was written 48 years after Christ was crucified. So I've gone back 3,000 years up to just under about 1,900 years from now. And that same truth runs through history. God knows everything we think. And you say, oh, come on, Les, how can he do that? That's wishful thinking. Listen, he put 1 billion stars into the Milky Way in the galaxy and not one is missing. I'm sure he knows what you and I think. Here's the good news. Think about these things today as you go about your busy lives. Here's the good news. Behold, he says, behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come into him and eat with him, and he with me. That was written 70 to 90 years after Christ was crucified. So my question here as I finish now, my question here is, let me ask you this. Is God knocking on the door of your heart today? Was God knocking on the door of your heart yesterday? Were you scared? Although you sense God's knocking on the door of your heart, you know you've done many things against it. He knows every one of them. The question to you is this. Will you open that door or will you close it shut? And that's our choice. He loves us so much that he's given us that choice to open that door to him or close it shut. Christ, as my brother said, has paid that penalty on the cross that we should pay. I should pay that price. It should be me up on that cross. I should pay that price for the things I've done wrong in my life in the past. But Christ did it for me in love and grace. He was the perfect lamb, the perfect sacrificial lamb. There was no one like him, and that agreed with the Father. The Father allowed his own Son to be that sacrificial lamb. So, I finished here. I just want to mention one book, which is John's Gospel. I mentioned it earlier. He saw Jesus dead. He ran to the tomb and saw that it was empty. And then he saw him alive again. Stunning. What an experience that is. And he wrote about that in here, John. And he was the only one that was not martyred out of the 12, basically. Even the replacement of Judas was martyred. So it's on the table there. It's free. You can take it, this book of gospel, and in here you will find the truth about Jesus Christ. Not what Facebook says, not what anyone says on the internet, the truth of the Word of God.